Hello, David. Welcome to All Ears English. How's it going today?
Hello, good. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, we are excited to have you on the show today. So, I'm going to do a formal introduction for our audience so that they know you, and then we will move into our topic. So, guys, today on the show, I have founder, entrepreneur, and inventor David Beker. He is the founder and president of a better design company and is based in Israel. With a lifetime of experience in senior management and entrepreneurship, David leads his team in helping inventors and entrepreneurs bring their product ideas to life. Over the course of his career, David has invented the multi award winning toy called Bank a Ball, as well as Backbook, a transformative way for a book to be structured, among other inventions. Again, welcome to the show, David. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great. I'm so excited. I love
Great.
when I get to talk to people who have invented things, especially products that have gone to market and are, on the shelves in Target or just are out there because what was in your head came to life and manifested in a physical product and people are purchasing it. How does that feel? That must be incredible.
It's a lot of fun and it's really an incredible experience. I'll tell you, there was one other product that you didn't mention, which is really where my story started.
Okay.
I spent most of my career, I have a master's in social work, and I worked in community work and in formal education for many years.
Mhm.
And at a certain point, I kind of felt like I wanted a bit of a change and I was
Yes.
looking for something a little more creative and a little bit more entrepreneurial.
Mhm.
And a friend of mine approached me and said, "I have an idea. Let's talk."
Oh, love that.
And before we know it, one thing led to another, and we had actually opened up a gourmet ice cream cone business.
Oh my gosh.
And
Ice cream is my
yes,
favorite thing in the world.
okay. So this was actually not the ice cream. This was actually the ice cream cones, which is the kind of
Okay.
overlooked piece of the ice cream experience. And
Interesting.
we actually opened up an ice cream cone business of gourmet cones that were flavored with inclusions in them. So you might have a coffee hazelnut ice flavored ice cream cone with pieces of hazelnuts in it, or a cherry almond cone with
Ooh.
pieces of dried cherries and almonds and flavoring. And it was really great. And we started selling it all over the country. Over here, we got international interest, and it was really a wonderful experience. That first time when we had a ice cream boutique look at us and say, "Okay, we're in. We'd like to start selling your product," and you've actually handing them something, and then they're taking it and eating
Amazing.
it and enjoying it.
Oh my
It's an
gosh.
incredible feeling. So that
I
was really
can't
where it
imagine.
all started.
How do you yeah, because there's always that moment when the idea comes up, but 99% of the ideas, they don't go anywhere, they're not necessarily serving a market. How did your friend come to you and know ahead of time, like, this is kind of a gap in the market? Just before we get into your tips on how to innovate, I mean,
Right.
how did he know that? Was there research that had gone into it? Was it a gut feeling? Where did that come from?
So he had done some research into it, and then we took it and did a lot more. Uh, it was very clear there was nothing out there like it, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think we appreciated how overlooked the ice cream cone itself was
Yeah.
until more recently.
Interesting.
But it was really, yes, he identified a gap, and then we took it many steps
I
further.
identified a gap. Well, I will say people love Ben& and Jerry's, and Ben& and Jerry's is kind of chunks of different flavors inside their ice cream, so
Right.
maybe he had a hunch on what was working. At least here in the States, we love Ben& and Jerry's. I'm not sure if that's popular in Israel
We
or
love it here as well.
okay. So maybe there
But
was a hunch there. Yeah.
I'll tell you something else though, which is interesting because you start off in one place and then you very often can veer into another avenue, which is flavored cones. That was kind of the
Mm.
idea. But
Mhm.
before we knew it, we were dealing with all natural.
Yeah.
We were dealing with organic. We were dealing with a manufacturing process which had significant innovation in it, to the extent that many people in the industry, and we met some very significant players in the industry, told us it can't be done. And
Ah.
we said, but we're doing it. It can be done. And, so the willingness to roll with it a bit, the willingness not to accept no for an answer right away,
Yes.
the willingness not to get stuck in where you start and being able to navigate a little bit and take it a little bit further. I
Yes.
think that's really, if we had just said, sure, there are chocolate cones in the market. Oh, it's not a
Mhm.
good idea. Forget it.
Sure.
We wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
Yes.
But the fact that we were able to keep innovating as we went on and find new avenues and find
Yeah.
new directions, I think that was one of the things that really made a big difference.
I love that. So you built momentum. I mean, there's nothing more satisfying in life than beating the naysayers, right? So 5 years later, everyone said it couldn't be done. Of course, you
It's
did
very
it,
true.
and it's just very satisfying. So, David,
Yes.
I think a lot of people around the world globally consider themselves either creative or not creative, and therefore maybe they think they can innovate or they can't innovate. But I don't think that innovation is magic. Is it magic? Is it magical, or should we ditch this way of thinking? Is there an actual process, or are there tips that we can follow to become more innovative or to innovate to create new things in the world? What do you think?
So I absolutely do not think it's magical. I
Mhm.
do think there's a science to it. But I think we all innovate. We all
Yeah.
innovate in our lives. We all innovate every single day in how we interact with people and how we help come up with creative ideas to help our children with something.
Mhm.
Uh, but we don't necessarily think of ourselves in that way all the time.
Right.
Um, so no, it's not magic. It's just a matter of identifying it sometimes and figuring out what you're going to do with it. Execution
Yes.
is the name of the game, right?
I
If
love
you
that.
really want to bring something to the marketplace, then there is a science to it, and there are steps, and there are ways of looking at things, and that in and to itself is a huge subject, which if
Yeah.
on another podcast we could deal with.
I know.
But I can
I
certainly give you some thoughts if you'd like.
Yeah, I have so many questions for you, but we'll stick to your tips, and then if we have more time, we'll be able to bring out a few more questions. So you had prepared for our audience today, for our listeners, whether it's in their home life, their family life, or their business life, working for a multinational company, 3 tips on how to come up with great ideas. Could you go ahead and share that first tip for our listeners today?
So I'll give a few different thoughts about that. And actually, maybe I'll start with that. I actually didn't even put in my list here.
Sure.
Uh, is really, if you really want to go into the area of inventing and entrepreneurship and you don't come from that background, I would spend some time studying it. There are plenty of books out there. There's plenty of people to talk to. Find yourself a mentor. Find yourself a program, a course, something. I personally discovered at one point a company called Inventor, and I signed up with
Hmm.
them, and found it extremely helpful to get myself rolling in this industry.
Okay.
Uh, I think that was very, very helpful to me. And along the way, I found significant mentors and significant partners, um, some personally, some friends, some colleagues, and some even that I pay for, some consulting from. But there are ways to do it that doesn't have to be incredibly complicated, but is incredibly important.
Yeah. So gather
Um,
your resources and kind of get some training in a certain way of thinking. Is that what you're saying here? There are
that's certainly one direction. That's certainly one
Yes.
direction I think is important. But as far
Mhm.
as what you specifically asked, as far as how to come up with new ideas,
Yeah.
and part of this is based on the things I've heard from through Inventor, through mentors. Uh, so first of all, look in your life, in your own personal life. There's tons of things around you, as I said, that you're coming up with creative solutions for every single day. And when you get stuck with something, stop for a second and say, "There's got to be a better way." You know,
Yes. Yes.
I had an innovation which I haven't taken further yet, but dealing with pasta strainers, right? It drives me
Yeah.
crazy and how I deal with that whole thing. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So I've toyed with different ideas about how to come up with a better solution. And I'm getting there. I'm not quite there yet, but it's something that
Interesting.
I deal with all the time. I have lots of kids, and we make pasta all the time. And
Yeah.
I there are frustrations that I come up with. There's got to be a better way. So look in your own personal life. What are ideas? What are things that you might be able to think of a better way to come up with something?
Yeah. I think
Um,
this requires a certain level of confidence that we need to have, right? Questioning life instead of just taking things for granted. This task is annoying, but just saying, "This is how I have to do it," versus saying, "No, it actually could be done better." Right?
yes,
Mhm.
definitely.
I love that.
Another thing is what are some of your personal interests?
Mhm.
So, what are things you like doing? What are things you enjoy? What are things you remember from your childhood that you love that maybe you didn't do much with or anything? And so, look at some of your personal interests because you probably know those the best and what speaks to you. One of the products that is brand new for me is a product called Bankable. Right? I
What's
grew
that
up.
one about? Oh,
If you can
cool.
see here,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you can see here, but I grew up playing Nerf style basketball on the back of my door, and we loved it. We would play it for hours and hours and hours when we were kids. there's also a whole big thing called trick shots, learning new and creative ways to play basketball and to do interesting things. So I said, wait a second, what if we can it? So we've got our hoop here, but
Mhm.
I've created a hoop that you can also change the angle of the rim.
Oh,
You've
very
got a whole
cool.
new play pattern all of a sudden, right?
Oh,
Cool
why not,
stuff,
right? When you
right?
look at that and
Right?
you think, "Why the heck not?" Right? It
Right.
makes total
Or
sense.
the backboard. You can also change the angle on the backboard.
Yeah, so
Right?
smart.
It's a whole new game, it's a whole new play pattern, and it's a lot of fun. The kids love it. It's a great thing for a dorm room, for young adults. It's just a lot of fun. And that came out of because I love playing Nerf basketball in my room. I love playing those kind of things. I love playing it with my kids. And I said, wait a second, maybe there's a way we can make these even more fun. So that's another thing
Mhm.
I would say. Think about things that are personally interesting to you. Maybe you like baking and you're thinking of a better way to do that kind of thing. Maybe you like gardening. There's a million different things. Something about your car, something about your pets. There's a million different things that are particularly interesting to you. And there's huge industries out there looking for good, creative, fun ideas.
Oh, I love it.
Um,
I love it. Do you think that
uh,
just a side before we go into the third piece, do you think that companies as they get bigger and bigger, they tend to hit a point where they can't innovate anymore because they don't I'm not sure why it happens, but I feel like I've seen it happen out in the corporate world where they start off as maybe an individual founder, small company, lots of great ideas, just going to market, and then over time they get bigger and less innovative.
I think that companies have to innovate to grow.
Uh-huh.
The question is, how long does it take them to innovate? So the bigger the
Mm.
company gets, the harder it becomes for them to turn on a dime and innovate things, whereas smaller companies can do it more quickly and bring something to market sometimes more quickly because the opportunity and the need for them to do it more quickly is there.
Yeah, so how can big companies act like small companies? That's where we see a lot of entrepreneurial departments within large companies, right, David?
But part of why that happens is because they need inventors to help feed them new things.
Yes.
So there is
Yes.
an opportunity. This is a whole industry called open innovation. People can feel free to look it up, and
I've heard
there
of
are
that.
companies all over the place looking for open innovation, and
Mm,
that's really this whole industry is growing by leaps and bounds.
amazing. And when you say
Yes,
industry, you mean the innovation industry, like the industry of
correct,
creators and innovators. Very cool. I,
correct,
I would love to go to a
correct.
conference. I feel like I'd have a lot of interesting
Yes,
conversations with interesting
yes,
people. Um,
definitely.
David, is there a third tip that I'm not sure if we went through all three or if we hit
So
them all, but is
I'll
there
give you
anything else?
another
Mhm.
two short ones. One is just keep your eyes open.
Okay.
When you go into a store, when you go into Target, when you go into Walmart, when you go into, you have lots of international folk here, but whatever your local department stores or hardware stores or whatever, just look what's out there, and not only look what's out there, excuse me, but look what might be able to be combined.
I like your
There's
idea of
something
combining.
in the hardware industry next to the toy industry. How could you combine those two things to make a really fun toy or a really interesting, I don't know, kitchen product that came from the hardware industry? So think about how
Yes.
you can do that. And the last thing I'll just say, even though it's more than three,
Mhm.
is always be open to opportunities. I was
Mm.
not looking to open up an ice cream cone company.
Sure.
I had somebody who knew that I was interested in doing something a little more entrepreneurial, who had
Mhm.
an idea and spoke to me. And I was at a point in my life when I was open enough to recognizing an opportunity and saying, you know what? Let's go for it. That sounds
Yes.
really interesting. Let's see if it's got legs. And so being open to opportunities that might come your way because you put yourself out there is also really a key space, I think.
So it's kind of a beautiful convergence of kind of being open, being in a place where you're feeling that confidence, and then looking for ideas. I love your tip about combining products, right? Elements that work of two products makes
Right.
a better product. And I also want to highlight the expression you use for our listeners that ideas got legs. Just real quick, what does that mean for our listeners, for our audience?
It means that it's got the ability to move. It's got the ability to grow.
Yeah, I love it. Love that.
Yes.
Awesome. David, this has been inspiring for me personally because I just love the idea of creating new things. But where can our listeners find you online and what you're working on these days and your newest inventions?
So you can certainly find me on LinkedIn at David Beker, B as in boy, Eker, uh, and also my website, which is just went live a little while ago, a better design company .com. So
Wonderful.
you can certainly find me either of those places.
Okay, so just say that URL for us one more time for our audience. Where can they find you? What's your URL again?
abetterdesigncompany.com.
Got it. All right, wonderful. Thanks for coming on the show, David. I really appreciate our chat today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time and for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Okay, bye.